welcome back to the One Man's Journeys podcast. This is Ryan Speltz. I'm your host, and I'm with Stephen Pugh today. And he is a Christian father, partner, and dude with drive. He is a realtor with Home Pride Group at eXp Realty, and one of the really comedic and just all-around good people I've seen on social media. So I wanted to bring him in, tell a little bit about his story, and hear what he has to say. So Steve, tell us a little bit about where you came from, what you've done, and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Comedic. Now I feel the pressure to be funny.
Yeah, jokes now. Do it.
Let's go. Ryan, awesome, man. Listen, I appreciate the opportunity. I thank you for having me, right? First and foremost. And I was honored when you reached out. I really was. So I appreciate you know what I mean, giving me a little bit of airtime here and telling the people a little bit about myself. So born originally in Wales. No disrespect to Americans. I say everyone's going to jump on me for this. I really know it. I say
people England, listening will get you.
I say England, right? Because not a lot of Americans know where Wales is. Maybe after this show, this Wrexham show. Have you heard of that?
The what
Ryan, show? Where they bought that soccer team. Have you ever heard of that?
Yep.
Deadpool. What's his name? What's that actor's name?
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. So Wales is getting a bit more notoriety due to that. So anyway, born and raised in Wales, came to the U.S. when I was 15. We had been coming here on vacation, on holiday for years. My dad ran into some issues. Margaret Thatcher, the recession. He was in the building trade, but spec builder. We'd build one house, live in it while he was building the next one. Then we'd move to that one. So we moved a lot, stayed in the same school, but moved quite a bit. Ran into some issues with interest rates, Margaret Thatcher. We emigrated here, and then went to Cypress Creek for a little while. Culture shock. That's a local school here. Went from a school of 300 in Wales to 3,000. So I was boom. So I found that hard to adjust, and then graduated from a local private school. Switched schools, graduated, and then had some menial jobs before real estate, pushing shopping carts at Sam's. I worked in a video game arcade, shredding tickets, and then got into real estate, got my license at 19, and that was it. So in a nutshell, and then I've been in real estate ever since I had a full head of hair.
There you go. And that's gone now.
Yes. Thank you for stating the obvious, sir.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, obviously there's a lot going on there with that. I mean, you've kind of moving all around create some difficulties. I experienced a little bit of that, but nothing obviously as crazy as moving across the pond and coming over here and all of that. And then, so you said he was a home builder in England, or was he a home builder in Florida?
In Wales. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wales. So he was building in Wales. And then, you always worry about how deep to get in here, but he obviously had some challenges with alcoholism, which I in turn inherited, if you will.
Yeah.
So maybe that was part of the problem as to why the business failed, but you got to give him credit. He came here, started again. We'd been coming on holiday quite a bit. Came here, started a business, and then brought us over. So he was in the cleaning trade. So he cleaned vacation homes here, and then we moved over, and that was it. So, yeah.
So how did real estate come about at 19? I mean, a lot of people, I mean, that doesn't stick for a long time for most, right? And if I'm being truthful, a lot of the people in the industry end up in real estate because they look at it as a side gig, and then it turns into something more. But at 19, obviously, you're not looking at it as a side gig. You're looking at it as like, this is it. So how did you get to that direction at 19 years old?
Ryan, that's a great question, man. And now that I look back, I think obviously part of it was motivation, and part of it was probably the understanding that there's more out there, that there had to be more, especially if I wasn't going to go back and further my education. But now that I think about it, it's so ironic. My old man suggested it. He suggested that I get into it. So that was it. I mean, like I said, I had some menial jobs. I will tell you, I was getting into a little bit of trouble, if you will. And I continued to do that for many, many years. We'll probably get into that. But I don't know. Yeah, I guess part of me knowing there had to be more, and him suggesting it. Yeah.
Yeah, because
So,
obviously that's a known industry in your family, with your dad being the home builder
right.
type setup, and so that that makes sense that would be a recommendation of him. And I mean, at 19 though, I wasn't listening to my dad's recommendations for most of it, so that's I can tell you that. That's and maybe if I had, we'd be in a different spot or whatever. But it's that's kind of the way it works normally. But that's awesome that you can even just pick up something like that and you go, yeah, dad told me to do that, and that's you got that memory forever of like, that's cool. Like my life was changed because dad said you should do real estate.
Yeah, and I don't think about it often enough. Now that you ask me that question, it brings it back, right?
Yeah.
So
But and that's, yeah, it's fun to, and that's why I love doing it. Like, honestly, this stuff is therapy for me to be able to dive into other people's stories and see the similarities and dig out just like small little bits like that kind of thing.
dude, I'm gonna hang out
You
with
know,
you every day. This is good.
we can
It's
do
like
that.
good
We can
for my
figure something
mental
out.
health.
Yeah. We can figure something out. So you mentioned the alcoholism. We can go a little bit into it if you want to. If you don't want to, that's not a problem at all. However, that's a big issue that gets spread pretty wide without, and it sneaks up on us, right? Like, it's something that
Oh yeah.
we can go into and be part of and be all for, and like, I got it under control, and then you wake up 3 years later and you're like, man, I don't have this under control. Tell me a little bit about your journey with that. It's something I've struggled with too, and so I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey on that.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. I mean, it's definitely progressive. I used to think I used to think it wasn't a disease. I used to think that that was a cop out for weak people to say that it was a disease and the reason that they couldn't quit. So obviously, it starts out harmless, right? Especially in England. I mean, we're all down the local pub at 15 drinking. So that's kind of where it initiated, if you will. And then coming here, I guess the pressures, maybe not wanting to sound weak, but the pressures of that change, you know what I mean, of environment, of total society, compared to how I was living, I guess. And then I got in with the wrong crowd, and then it escalated from there. So it went from there to, I didn't even know what marijuana, what it was. I don't know if we can go through all this, but I didn't know what it was, so I came here. I mean, obviously, not blaming anything on the States. I love it. This is my home. But it really wasn't prevalent back home. It was more the alcohol. Got into that, and then that, in turn, it's a gateway drug, in my opinion, led to the cocaine. So cocaine and alcohol was 14. Cocaine, I started, I think, 19, maybe 20. And then that ran all the way through until I was 37. So the man upstairs has a sense of humor and figured out a sobriety date that I would never forget. So it's 4/8/16. You just times it by 2. So, because he knows I'm a knucklehead and I won't remember the date. But yeah, so I've been sober now 7.5 years, going on 8 years. And it feels like a different life. I mean, there's sometimes I'll have that pull, but just with your routine and the disciplines that you know what I mean you have in life, you create that fortitude and that state of mind to deal with it, right? And you can deal with it so much better by being disciplined about what you do and what you feed your mind, what you feed your brain. That matters,
Dive into that. Like you mentioned, because if I'm being straightforward, the large majority of people don't have those disciplines, those routines, those things that are happening every day that you and I have both developed over time to stay above water on that issue. And there's a lot of people out there that don't know what to develop. What do you do? Like, if you're looking at it, what is that routine? What helps you stay above it? And you mentioned a couple of times where you've had that pull. What keeps you from getting pulled back in?
That's a great question. And I just wish everybody could have the opportunity, right? Everybody's different, but I want to answer that to help. What do I do? So my daily routine generally is I'm up by 5, sometimes 4:30, but I'll do spiritual readings in the morning. I have 4 books that I read from, just a page, John Maxwell's, the Daily Stoic, the Bible, and what's my fourth one? Golly, see, that's my age, Ryan. I do have a fourth one. It'll come back to me. So I read those daily. And then for me, exercise is a big thing. I don't feel right unless I'm, you know what I mean? Unless I've done my exercise in the morning. Everybody's different. Some people do it in the afternoon. And then generally I'll listen to a podcast on the way into work, something education based, right? Just to prepare myself for the day. And then I have a schedule throughout the day in terms of my own job. But for mental health, it's extracurricular activities. I play soccer, and I didn't play soccer. I gave it up, you know, when I was 17, 18. Now I'm 45, I'll be 46 in a couple of weeks, and I'm out there trying to chase these 21-year-old kids around a soccer pitch. But it's my therapy, right? It's something I need, and that's part of keeping that mental health. Everybody's different. I mean, if you can go out and have one or two drinks, you know, more power to you. I don't have a problem with it. People were weird with me in the beginning. Oh, can we drink around you? Is it okay? I'm like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? But
I know
if you're
exactly what
anything,
you mean.
yeah, if you're anything like me, I just don't have that luxury anymore. It's not your fault. It's just the way things turned out because I can't. My mind turns into 2 drinks to 52 drinks to an 8 ball of cocaine and totaling a Hummer going airborne off of a roadway and nearly killing myself. And let alone that, I could have killed somebody else.
Right.
So it got to the point where, I mean, I was not for long periods, but I was in and out of jail. I always worked the whole way through, you know, but just I got intentional with my business when I got sober, and intentional with being disciplined and things that I do, feeding my mind the right thing. I still have so much work to do. By all means, anybody that's listening to this, I'm still a train wreck, but I sure as a heck am a lot better than I was 7 years ago. Right. So
One foot
yeah,
in front of the other, right? I
yeah,
mean, that's really, it's taking that first step, and that first step leads to the next step. And you know, you mentioned the cocaine at 19. Is it, you know, getting into the real estate, because you said those are two things that happened at 19. Did you have early success in the real estate industry then, and have more access to that? Because I know I've seen that a lot of a pattern of that. You know, is that something that happened for you where you'd, oh, I got, you know, big commission on one of these houses, and
oh
you've got
yeah,
all this excess money you're going around, and you're like, what do I
oh
do
yeah,
with it? And it ends up that, you know, is that
oh
something
yeah.
that happened?
Oh yeah, I would like to think so. I mean, obviously, I don't want to sound like an egotistical bastard, but I'd like to think that I did okay. I mean, it took me 3 months to sell my first house, but within that first couple of years, I was, you know, I was 20, 30 deals a year, you know? So it had a big part to do with it, I guess. Now
Yeah.
looking back that you bring it up.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
see that a lot, like in the, you know, in the professional sports realm, right? Where people are getting a bunch of money thrown at them up front. And if you ever watch, there's an interview out there with Shaq about how he talks that, like, he got that $1 million signing bonus with his first contract, and it was spent like 2 days after, and he didn't know about taxes, and so then he was, you know, he was negative to the IRS with the taxes up front. But you know, he bought a house, or he bought a car for his mom, he bought himself a car, and he bought a house, and he was out of money, and then he was $300,000 in debt to the IRS. And you know, that, and then that changed, right? Like he learned from it, and a lot of us don't learn from it, and that's where we get into trouble. Is you know, these things that we look back on, we go, man, those were mistakes, but at the time it was just the way we were living life, so it didn't feel like a mistake, and so we just did it over and over and over again, and then they turn into habits, and then we get into trouble,
Yeah,
like you said, you know. And that's the
exactly.
hard part is, you know, the biggest thing with that is just make sure we have a supporting cast around us that can pull us out and tell us, like, you know, you're kind of messing up here, right? Like, and get
Yeah.
us back. And
I think that what made the difference too is a lot of us are in this industry, transactional treadmill, right? You sell some houses, you make some money, then you slack off. You sell some houses, you make some money, then you slack off. So by instituting those daily disciplines and being consistent, right? So now I don't experience any of that anymore. And I'm grateful for that because I don't have those stressors, which in turn would lead me to drink more. So it was like a vicious bloody cycle, you know? So there is so much good that's come out of it. And for anybody else that's out there that's struggling with it, I've been there and I know how it is, and it's not easy to beat it, you know? So
Yeah.
I feel for you, you
Yeah,
know?
and it built what you have now, and I'd love to dive into your leadership aspect now, with where at the team you're at. Like, what do you help with? I mean, what do you see as like the main goals of being a leader where you're at? Like, how do you drive every day into that? Because I know that you mentioned you're a dude with drive. So let's
Mm.
dive into the drive piece, and what really drives you? Like, what drives you as a leader?
What drives me? What drives me is helping people understand and see the potential that they have and not be conformed to maybe the programming and the certain fears that we all have, right? But will hold people back and keep them from their potential. If I can get more people to push through that, then that's kind of what drives me. Yeah, I will tell you, leadership, it's a constant journey, man, and it's probably one of the most difficult things that I've had to deal with, or that I'm doing, because I have such a long way to go.
Yeah, ever
There's
changing with the world for sure. So
yeah, and just me personally, my state of mind towards leadership, obviously I want to help people, but you've got to come to grips with our individuals. They all have their own motivations, their own goals, and they're all their own personality types. I'm like go 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 go, and and a lot of the mistakes I was making in the beginning was not understanding that not everybody's like us, right? And that, you know what I mean? I used to get frustrated. Oh, why don't these people do what they say they're going to do? Or why don't but you've just got to work with people, have some compassion, at the same time, know when to cut certain people off out of your life, which is fine, right? But leadership is an ongoing thing. And that's one thing I do want to get better at, and just understanding humans and finding a way to impact them and help them understand that if they want to be better than average, they absolutely can be. Yeah.
yeah, that's we mentioned similar things to that on the last podcast as well, or the episode that I did, and we talked about how some of us walk into a situation and we go, somebody says you can't do that, and the answer is watch me, right? And then
Mhm.
the other person that you tell you can't do that to, and their answer is you're right.
Mm.
And both of them can be successful in their own way, but like one of them's going to be much farther down the road, right? It's going
Yeah.
to be considerably more successful because they look at it and go, well, why not,
It's a
instead of
belief
why.
and a thought process, right? But I think by doing those daily things and having those habits and instilling discipline, that will change in your favor, you know? But
Yeah,
it's
and
a
the one
constant
thing,
thing. It doesn't change overnight. We don't get that luxury.
yeah, the mind and the mind can change overnight, right? The physical reality or what's around you can't. And so
Mhm.
that's one thing that I've struggled with for a long time. It's like the I can change my mind tonight to tomorrow. I can wake up tomorrow and be a completely different person inside my mind. But the physical reflection of that on the world is not always going to show up that way
Yeah.
immediately. And the expectations of other people that we live up to, we can't let that box us in to bring us back to where we were. Like, we have to fight through it with that mental piece, and that's what those daily disciplines allow us to do. Like you keep saying, is just like, do the daily thing, right? Do the thing daily and
Some
watch
days
how
it's
it
not
changes.
easy.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. And that when you go through, and I say when because I know you have, of keeping up with those daily disciplines, it seems like you've got it to a point of like, you know with the reading for sure, right? You said you read one
Mhm.
page. I think that's something I want to dive into, is where did that mentality come from, or how did you develop a strategy of like, I'm going to read one page of 4 books?
Mm. Um, Self-developed, I think. I mean, morning mindset was a lot to do with it, right? The affirmations, savers, silence affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, scribing. I was doing the scribing, I fell off, and I almost think I should get back to that. So I do have a couple minutes of silence. I do pray. I do pray every day. Affirmations, I unfortunately do not do. I did for a while. So maybe being on this call, it'll kick me in the ass. See, because now that you've got that one layer down, now you can inch it up again, right? So I appreciate this, Ryan. Maybe I needed this.
That's what we're here for, right? Like whether it's an external realization for other people watching that maybe that's going to open it up for them as well, or like I said, like this is for me, it's a lot of therapy for me to just help and get through here. Like just the conversations alone are great, and I've been doing them basically once a day for the last 2 weeks, and it's been absolutely awesome to just like dive in once a day of my own podcast instead of listening to the external ones for sure. But yeah, I mean that so for me, like from the outside with your one page and 4 books, it looks to me like you're always talking about, we always talk about like eliminating hurdles, right? And so 1 page, like who can't read 1 page every day? And I'm not saying it's not difficult for you to do on certain days, but like you've gotten it down to like to the minimum of like what it's going to take to get better, and you're like, I'm going to do at least this every single day.
And I remember the author of the book is Tony Dungy, Uncommon Life. So that's daily.
I got to read it. It's in my library right now.
Yeah, so it's just the date. So I'll read the date for today, right? Out of all 4. But I think from my morning mindset is where I picked that up from. So, and it's kind of just stuck. Yeah.
So with the amount of reading you've done, right? You do 4 pages a day, so you're looking at what, over 1,500 or almost 1,500 pages a year. You've got to have pulled a quote out of from somewhere. So what is one of your favorite quotes of all time, and why is it your favorite quote of all time?
The results you seek are in the actions you're avoiding. Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite quotes, because you know what I mean? For me, I'm big on action, and if people want to see change, myself included, because I got a long way to go, it's action. So the results you seek are in the actions you're avoiding. That's one of my big ones.
That's perfect, right? Yeah. Because we can't ever get to a place unless we do some of the things that
we're not doing. And you know what? Another thing I think it is making sure, like, at least for me, like doing some of this, there's that tinge of uncomfortability. I say the word, I can't even say the bloody word. Uncomfortability about it, right? But I think that it's imperative for growth that we try to do that in some way, shape, or form every day, somehow. Either getting into a Zoom room and involving yourself, asking questions, or calling someone that you don't want to call, or walking up to somebody and having a conversation, or having a meeting with somebody you don't want to meet with that you don't feel like doing. I think that's important for growth. And I think that's maybe something that people miss. They don't want to do it. They don't want to be in an uncomfortable position, but by not doing so, a lot of the things they want to achieve and accomplish are never going to play out, and they'll be in the same position they were a year from now. So I think that's important. There's a lot around being uncomfortable,
Yeah. I saw just a TikTok video, Mike Posner, and I know that like we look back 15 years and Mike Posner was like the joke of the music world. Like he just sang funny songs and funny videos and that kind of stuff. But he's on his self-development journey, and it's really, really cool. So he's actually just a slight backstory on him. He's walked from the East Coast to the West Coast. He walked. And he actually, when he was walking through Oklahoma, and he got bit by a snake and almost lost his leg, and went back to the exact spot that he got bit and walked the rest of the way. So he literally stopped, and that was his commitment. He stepped back from the music world, and that was how he changed his life. And so I follow him on TikTok, and he one of the videos is him running, and he talks about, you talk about uncomfortability. He says, my old way of gauging my life was how happy am I? And he talks about how being happy is just, that's our thought process of how the world is bending to us and how it's fitting in and how we're so comfortable with things that are going on. And that's happiness for most people. And he said, what a small way to live. Because if you're expecting your day, or if the only way your day is a success, and you're going out and people are bending to you and things are happening for you, and that's what makes you happy, it's just such, you're living small because you're never uncomfortable and things are never growing. You're always going to be in that little box of like, I need this to happen to be comfortable. And
Yeah.
so he said, so my new gauge of life is how uncomfortable can I make myself on a day-to-day basis, because it's going to lead to so much higher levels of happiness on the other side. So instead
Yeah.
of focusing on that, he focuses on like, what can I do to make myself uncomfortable? Like, is that kind of the mindset that you're bringing to that piece? I know you say you got to do more of it. We all do, but is that
Yeah.
similar to what you're thinking?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And then also going back to what you said about the externalities of the world, affecting you, it's easier said than done, right? But if you can, work on mindset, then you're able to deal with these things when they come at you, you know? I mean, we have business partners or team members that'll totally be destroyed if they lose a deal, but it's just part of it. And if you're prepared for it you know what I mean, you prepared yourself, then it helps. But yeah, you said something in there also, which I kind of believe in, is goals and commitments, right? I think this guy was committed. That's a commitment. Goes back after all that time and finishes what he committed to do. I think a lot of us, myself included, make goals, and if we don't hit those goals, then we either make a new goal or we say we'll try it again, right? With a commitment, if you commit, it's either a yes or no. Did you do it? Yes. Did you do it? No. Right? So I think people, that's why they prefer goals over commitments. I think we should all live by commitments. Then we'd be way further ahead if that's something you're trying to do, you know?
Yeah. And the commitment piece, it's not commitment to anything or anybody else. That's the thing. And this is something that's taken me a long time to realize, right? Like, especially with the alcohol portion of quitting that, in that decision, that wasn't a commitment to quit alcohol. That was a commitment to myself. And then it doesn't matter what the alcohol piece is. It's just a matter of like, throughout all of my years of drinking, I'd never kept commitments to myself, because it was always derailed by the fact that, it's Friday, I'll go out for some drinks. Saturday doesn't matter then because I'm going to be recovering. Sometimes Sunday doesn't matter because you're recovering. And then Monday sucks because you're tired because you've been recovering all weekend and you didn't do like
Man.
it's just a commitment to who you are as a person and to yourself, instead of committing to an object or to another person. And
Yeah.
I see a lot of that coming from you, of like, you've committed to yourself, and that time frame that you set aside in the morning is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do it, you feel off because you're avoiding the commitment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I didn't know you were sober too. I think maybe I saw something about that. How many years? Yeah?
2.5 now.
Congratulations, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Took
How
me a
old
long
are you
time
now?
to. What's that?
How old are you now? Can I ask?
34.
Gotcha. God, I wish I would have figured it out at your age. That'd be,
Everybody
what I mean?
talks about it's the constant topic of the potential piece, right? And it's funny that how many people are so quick to like, you got potential, and it's just such a tough thing to live in the potential and know that you have it, and then still just living in potential. Everybody, we want to try to push past that and see what comes out the other side.
My kids too, right? You don't want to, like, because obviously I have a family. I mean, I just couldn't continue. What kind of dad was I? It just had to quit. And I'm blessed and I'm grateful. And he saved me. And that's all I can say. And just pray for other lost souls and people struggling with the same thing.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for me, and I've had, obviously when you start putting out some more content that's positive and inspirational and all of that, I'm starting to get some people reaching out to me and saying, like, kind of thank you for posting. And so, that other side comes out. I've been doing a lot of like, just get involved, because if you're dealing with this, somebody else is dealing with it. Have you seen, like, because I feel like you're open about your struggles and just watching your social media stuff. It's not all just the glitz and glamour of the real estate market, which most real estate agents do. You're like, you're in the trenches and it's the daily stuff. Have you recognized or noticed people reaching out to you, or have you been able to kind of say those similar things to those people that do reach out?
That's good. So I used to, the same way, I don't know if you felt the same way. I would wonder if anybody's listening and anybody cared. You know what I mean? Because I was being genuine with the stuff that I post, hoping to have that impact. but there was nothing for gosh, I don't know, long time, and then you start to question, why am I even bothering? I'm just gonna not even bother. And then recently in the last year, yeah, we have a couple of people that we partnered with. We're going through the same struggles. I've had people send me messages. If it wasn't for your post, they keep me going. I had one guy send me a video message. And then, because we all want to be validated as human beings, right? That's all we want, I think, at the end of the day, is encouragement and validation. So yeah, now it renews you, and you there's a reason to keep pushing through too, right? So yeah, your question, but not for a long time. It wasn't for 2, 3, 4 years, but now more so in the last year and a half.
Yeah,
So
looking into that, I've seen similar scenario, right? It's the consistency piece, and to be honest, it's because we've been so desensitized to this changing, like, oh, you're super positive now, right? Because every
yeah,
single year on January 1st, everybody's super positive and super
yeah,
changed and their new person. And like, it just, social media has desensitized us so much to that crap because everybody posts it and everybody talks about how they're going to be this new person. And they start posting gym selfies once a day because that's what
mm,
keeps them on track or whatever. And it just ends up, a month later or less than a month later, they're not that person anymore. And so I think in my experience, it's been just like, you have to show the consistency to show those people that
yes,
knew what you were, that you are something different. And then they start appreciating it because they're like, okay, this actually is who this guy is. He's not pretending. And
understood.
it takes a long time for people to get through that mindset of like, man, this guy's just faking it. I know what he did. Like, I saw this
Yeah,
guy partying in college all the time. I know who he is. And
yeah,
then you're different, and I think that's, to be honest, if we go into the business side of it, I think a lot of real estate agents struggle because they expect their friends to use them just because they're a real estate agent, and they forget all of the history that they have with those people.
you're
All
right.
of those moments on a Friday night where you were out drinking till 2 a.m. with that person, and they've seen you, pee on a tree because you had to go
Yeah,
to the bathroom when you're wasted, like all of those things that come out. I think, there's a lot in that of you have to change the perception of actually who you are
yeah,
to
for
those
them to
people.
have buy-in. It's weird you say that too, Ryan. I had a good friend that I'd known for years, older guy, and even now, right after 7.5 years later, when we have a conversation, oh, Mr. Positive, what are you posting today? Come on, man, get it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
So I
they
still have,
want you to succeed until you get there, and then they'll pull you right back down to, or try to pull you right back down to where they are. And
yeah,
it's just the journey, and it's that's why it's here. That's why this whole thing exists. I can't point to one thing, but every time something comes up, I'm like, that's why this exists. Because I saw a need for people to understand, like, everybody else is the same. We're all
mhm,
dealing with the
mhm,
same stuff of
mhm.
like overcoming these expectations of who we are and who we do, or what we do and who we're with, and being able to just recognize, like, I'm not the same person day to day. So why are you expecting me to be the same person every day?
Yeah.
And what's your experience with, like, you mentioned that just now with that one person, um, even throughout your changing of this last 7.5 years, what does your, like, that journey with people look like? What have you noticed, like, when you quit, you lost a bunch of friends, or
Oh,
you
of course. Of course. I mean, I've gotten phone calls, you know what I mean? A buddy of mine died in a hotel room. Well, two of them, actually. Yeah. So I've lost people. I have separated myself from people, but they weren't really friends to begin with, right? So now I like you said, I'm surrounded by a core group that have instrumental, have a positive impact on my life for the most part. Um, and yeah, it's definitely a new subset and a new environments. It's new environments, people, places, and things. That's what you got to do. I've still, the mental health portion is still there, but as I said, it's things I work on daily to deal with. My life is not all roses, neither is yours. Nobody's is. But I think, you know what I mean. If people can break out of something that's the challenge with, and make those small changes daily, compounded over time, their life will be totally different in a year. But it's just sticking with it and not falling back to what they know, you know?
I think that's a great
Oh,
message to finish up with. I mean, just
yeah.
sticking with, instead of sticking with what you know, get into those daily disciplines. And honestly, man, that one page of 4 books sticks with me super hard with you,
Yeah.
Steve. It's like that to me is just like, because it's the easiest, like, and I'm not
It
calling it
is,
easy for you on
yeah.
a daily basis, but it in the core concept of like, I need to learn something new or I need to do something new. Every single person can read 4 pages a day
Yeah.
of any books that you find. So
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
that's great. So, it's not an expectation of I got to read 100 pages today. It's just read one. It takes a
Yeah.
minute. Like, it's great.
Yeah. Energy
So
Bus is one we just finished up. Energy Bus is a good one. So if you're
yeah,
working with a team or a group or coworkers, Energy Bus was a good one we just finished up.
awesome.
So
Awesome. So we'll stick that as a recommendation for sure. So I
yeah.
appreciate it, Stephen. I think this is a great concept for people to get in those daily disciplines. And that's the overriding value of the whole call was, the disciplines you've been able to develop on the daily to make sure that drive sticks and make sure that your success sticks.
Mhm.
And I truly appreciate you hearing your story. And, on the next one, maybe we dive into a little something different and we'll definitely have you back on.
I appreciate you, Ryan. Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And hopefully somebody hears something in there, you know what I mean, that they can take with them. So,
Absolutely. All
yeah.
right. We'll
Thank
see
you,
you on the
brother.
next one.